Imagine walking down the street, right? And you stop, bend down, and pick up a stone.
Okay.
It feels heavy, it feels cold, and it just sits perfectly still in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. Completely inert.
Right, exactly. To our everyday perception, it's the absolute definition of a dead, inanimate object. You toss it back onto the ground, and it will likely just, sit there in the dirt for another million years.
It's basically our default symbol for permanence. I mean, when we want to describe a rule that is utterly unchangeable, we literally say it's set in stone.
Right.
We rely on that baseline assumption of static matter just to navigate the physical world.
But what if that baseline assumption is fundamentally flawed? Like, what if the mundane stone you just picked up is actually being maintained by a billion-year-long, highly intelligent dance of invisible energy?
It's a wild thought.
It really is.
Yeah.
And today's deep dive explores exactly that tension, that vast canyon between what our hands feel and what the universe is, actually doing right beneath our fingertips.
Yeah, we're digging into some really fascinating source material today.
We are. We are looking at a text from the year 2026 by Paul Haagensen. It's titled Infinite Microcosm and Macrocosm. And it's this incredibly unique piece of writing that blends analytical prose with deeply metaphysical poetry.
Which is such a cool mix.
Yeah, it argues that the universe isn't made of inert matter at all.
Right. The author is essentially proposing that reality is constructed from purposeful energy that's directed by consciousness.
Yeah.
And what makes this text so compelling is how it bridges the gap between, the rigid limits of quantum physics and the expressive wonder of philosophy. It's trying to provide an actual mechanism for how form emerges from formlessness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand that mechanism, we have to start by looking downward, like way downward.
Down to the microscopic.
Exactly. We are all generally familiar with the standard model of particle physics, right? The idea that we break matter down into atoms, then into protons and electrons, and further down into quarks.
The basic building blocks.
Right. The usual assumption is that eventually we're going to hit the bottom floor. Like, we'll find the fundamental, unbreakable pixel of reality. But Haagensen's premise starts by just completely rejecting that bottom floor.
He does. He describes the breakdown of matter as an endless, relentless quest.
Yeah.
The text specifically mentions quarks and beta quarks as just mere waypoints on a journey that never actually concludes.
Which is kind of mind-bending.
It is. He points out that we constantly invent new names, new classifications, as our instruments allow us to dig deeper. But he insists that the process just goes on breaking down forever.
I am so curious about that phrasing, quarks and beta quarks. It feels like he's using the language of modern physics to point toward this epistemic limit.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, okay, think about zooming in on a high-resolution digital photograph. We expect to eventually just hit a blank, solid square of color, right?
Yeah.
The fundamental pixel.
The smallest possible unit.
Yeah. But in Haagensen's framework, when you zoom in on that pixel, you find an entire new universe of complexity. And then you zoom into a detail of that universe and...
We'll find another one.
Exactly. It just never ends. It's a striking visual, but if I'm being honest, it feels scientifically problematic.
Oh, so?
Well, if it never ends, how do we ever truly define what anything actually is? Like, doesn't physics just become an endless ghost hunt at that point?
What's fascinating here is that that's exactly the philosophical reality Haagensen is asking you to confront.
Okay.
He isn't merely complaining that our microscopes aren't strong enough. He's describing an infinite microcosm, this cosmic sprawl where the inability to find a fundamental particle changes the whole definition of the physical world.
Because there's no base level.
Right. If there is no foundational building block, then the very concept of solid matter is just a construct. At a certain point of endless subdivision, you aren't dealing with stuff anymore.
What are you dealing with then?
You're dealing with pure boundless movement.
Okay, but that brings up a massive issue with thermodynamics.
What's the entropy problem?
Exactly. If we are dealing with an infinite regression of moving energy without any solid floor to anchor it, the natural tendency of the universe should just be entropy.
It should be a mess.
Right. It should just be a chaotic, formless soup. Why doesn't the chair you're sitting on right now simply dissolve into an infinitely dividing cloud of subatomic dust?
Well, the author anticipates that exact question. And his answer is actually the most radical claim in the entire text.
Oh, yeah. The intelligence part.
Yes.
Yeah.
He argues that these infinitely dividing, seemingly non-existent particles, they don't move randomly.
Right.
They aren't subjected merely to the cold, blind laws of probability. He writes that they are imbued with a form of intelligence.
That phrase really stood out to me, and he leans into it heavily.
Very heavily.
The prose states they have a task in the creation of reality, and the poem describes them engaging in an intelligent choreography in time and space. He even calls them creation's architects.
Yeah, beautiful imagery.
It is, but we need to define our terms here because my immediate reaction is just total skepticism.
Sure.
Are we supposed to believe that, like, a quark has a microscopic nervous system? Is he suggesting biological intelligence on a subatomic level?
No. And that's a crucial distinction to make. He is definitely not talking about biological intelligence or, like, algorithmic processing.
Okay, good.
The intelligence he describes is defined purely by inherent purpose.
Purpose.
Right. The text states that these particles follow a path to keep form over time. See, in physics, we typically model particle interactions as blind collisions.
Like a bunch of bumper cars just crashing into each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Random bumper cars. Haagensen is arguing against that randomness. He sees an intrinsic teleology, an organizing principle that actively resists that descent into a chaotic soup.
I still struggle a bit with the mechanics of that, honestly, because he uses phrases in the poem like harmonious stroll and purpose and grace. Is it possible he's just, romanticizing basic molecular bonds? We know that strong and weak nuclear forces hold things together. Isn't it a bit of a leap to call a strong nuclear force purposeful choreography?
It's a leap if you view it strictly through a materialist lens, sure.
Right.
But Haagensen is suggesting that the forces we observe, like the strong nuclear force or electromagnetism, those are just the measurable symptoms of this underlying intelligence.
Oh, I see.
He's proposing that the energy has a directional intent to maintain structure. The intelligence is the choreography itself. It's like the music playing beneath the physical forces, giving them a reason to bind together rather than fly apart.
Okay, so if we apply this idea of intentional choreography back to the macro world, we run straight back into that mundane stone on the sidewalk.
Right, the rock.
How does a frantic, microscopic dance of infinite energy translate into a heavy, boring rock? The disparity between those two states just seems impossible to bridge.
Well, Haagensen actually uses the rock as his primary case study to bridge that exact disparity. Yeah, he acknowledges the paradox. He notes that rocks manage to keep their macro-level forms despite what he calls the rapid movement within it in the myriads.
Oh, right. The poem has a great couplet about this.
Oh, the one about the stone home.
Yes. He writes, rocks stand steadfast. Through eons they roam, a dance of vibrations within their stone home. That imagery really stuck with me.
Very evocative.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. To conceptualize this, I started thinking about, like, a flash mob.
Okay, a flash mob. I like that.
Right. You have trillions of participants moving with immense energy and highly coordinated choreography. But because human perception operates on such a vastly different, much slower scale of time and space.
It just looks static.
Exactly. It looks like they are holding a static pose. The rock isn't dead. It's just this furious, organized blur of activity holding its shape for a really, really long time.
That analogy helps visualize the movement perfectly. But we have to push it further to understand the mechanism Haagensen is talking about. Because in a flash mob, human participants memorize a routine, right?
Yeah.
They receive a text message telling them where to stand and when. If particles are holding the shape of a rock, what is the equivalent of that text message? What is sustaining the pose?
That's a good question.
The text argues that the pose is maintained by the underlying intelligence of the energy itself, essentially choosing to manifest as a rock for an eon. And crucially, that pose is strictly temporary.
Wait, temporary? Even a rock that has been sitting in a riverbed for 1 billion years?
Yes, even the oldest rock is just a temporary arrangement of energy.
Wow.
The text explicitly states that eventually these particles will move on to create different forms. The poem actually reinforces this with the line, "Form ever-changing, yet essence holds sway."
So the form isn't the truth.
Right. This implies that solidity, that hardness and weight you felt when you held the stone is entirely conditional. It's an illusion.
An illusion. I mean, that is a heavy word to use for something that will break your toe if you drop it on your foot.
It is. But in Haagensen's framework, solidity is just a veil to unfurl.
A veil.
Yeah. What you perceive as an unyielding object is merely a snapshot of a cosmic ballet that operates on a time scale way, way beyond human comprehension. The particles are pausing to hold a chord in a much longer symphony, and eventually the music is going to shift.
And the form will dissolve and rearrange.
Exactly.
That is slightly dizzying when you apply it to your immediate surrounding. I mean, everything around you right now, your desk, the walls of the room, the device you were listening to this on.
All of it.
It's all just vibrating energy holding a remarkably long pose.
Pretty wild to think about.
But if we accept that, it demands an answer to a much bigger question. Like, if it's a flash mob holding a pose, who is the choreographer?
Right, who's in charge?
Yeah. What is the source of the intent that keeps the energy from scattering?
Yeah.
And why do we feel the illusion so convincingly as solid?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the text transitions from quantum mechanics into the architecture of perception. Haagensen's conclusion is that our sensory experience is a highly specialized translation mechanism.
Translation mechanism.
Yeah. We feel the rock is solid because, as he writes, we can experience material things because we're built to do this.
Wait, really? So our biology is complicit in the illusion?
Exactly. He argues that human senses are conditioned to experience this pure, intelligent energy as so-called solid things.
Wow.
He views the macro world we interact with as the mega result of all that microscopic activity. The poem actually says, "Perception our guide, senses our art, to experience matter, to feel it depart."
That's fascinating.
So your hand and the rock are both composed of the exact same swirling energy, but your senses translate the interaction between them into a feeling of pressure and weight.
Why, though? I mean, if the underlying reality is this beautiful, boundless, intelligent energy, why would our senses be built to just filter all of that out and leave us with the illusion of a boring, heavy rock?
It's a fair question.
Like, why construct the veil in the first place? Are we just trapped in a giant interactive hologram for no reason?
The author suggests that the veil is fundamentally necessary for experience to occur at all.
How so?
Think about it. If we perceive the universe as it actually is an infinite roaring ocean of vibrating particles, we couldn't interact with it.
Oh, it would just be overwhelming.
Completely. We couldn't learn, we couldn't build, we couldn't exist as localized individual entities. The illusion of solid matter provides a stable theater for existence.
A stage to stand on.
Yes, it gives us a stage to stand on. And the entity that built the stage, the ultimate choreographer of this entire system, is consciousness.
Consciousness. Okay, but he's not talking about consciousness as a byproduct of brain activity, right?
No, not at all.
He isn't saying that human brains evolved and then suddenly became conscious of the universe. He's framing consciousness as the foundation itself.
Precisely. In traditional materialism, consciousness is an emergent property of complex matter. Like, you put enough atoms together in a brain, and consciousness boots up like software.
Right.
Haagensen flips that entirely. He states that this pure, super-intelligent energy in action is the result of consciousness. The poem even refers to consciousness as a masterful hand that whispers in every swirl.
So consciousness acts almost like a fundamental field, like gravity or electromagnetism.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it.
It permeates the infinite microcosm, and the particles move with purpose because they are actively reacting to the intent of that conscious field.
Exactly. Consciousness is the rulebook. It is the intent that imbues the microscopic realms with their choreography, which then scales up to create the macro realm we inhabit.
So the microcosm and the macrocosm are united.
Because they are both expressions of the exact same underlying conscious intent. Your biological senses are literally translating the universe's consciousness into a language you can understand. The language of physical matter.
That is just a sweeping, comprehensive theory of reality. I mean, we started this deep dive by looking at a completely mundane stone, and Haagensen's text essentially walked us down an endless staircase.
Yeah, it really takes you on a journey.
We descended past atoms and quarks, discovering that the bottom floor doesn't even exist. And instead of a chaotic soup of random physics, we found an intelligent, purposeful choreography of energy holding the whole universe together.
A cosmic ballet.
Right. We saw how that microscopic dance creates a billion-year illusion of solidity, providing a stable stage for our human senses. And finally, we arrived at the understanding that consciousness itself is the grand architect. It's both the music and the dancer, whispering instructions to every single particle in existence.
It really is an elegant way to resolve the tension between the world we feel and the really strange reality suggested by advanced physics. And, it leaves you with a profound implication to unpack on your own.
Oh, What implication is that?
Well, we established that the particles holding the shape of a rock or a star are doing so only temporarily, right?
Right, the flash mob moves on eventually.
Exactly. The text insists that after billions of years, they move on to create different forms. The form changes, but the essence, the inherent intelligence and memory of the choreography remains.
Okay. They go back into the cosmic ballet to take on a new pose.
Right. So apply that logic to the physical body you inhabit right now.
Oh, wow.
The atoms maintaining the temporary illusion of your hands, your heart, your brain. They are not new. They have been engaged in this purposeful dance since the dawn of time.
That's wild.
Does that mean the intelligent energy currently swirling inside of you is carrying the choreography of ancient stars? Or deep oceans, or stones from eons past?
I never thought of it that way.
Under Haagensen's framework, you are not just an observer walking through a dead universe. You are literally composed of the universe's ancient, recycled intelligence.
That reframes absolutely everything about how we interact with our environment. The distinction between the observer and the observed just completely collapses.
It really does.
We are all just different movements in the exact same performance.
Beautifully put.
Well, we hope you take that thought with you today. The next time you find yourself holding a heavy, lifeless stone, just take a moment to consider the furious, intelligent dance happening right beneath your fingertips. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the things that seem set in stone, and we will catch you next time.